Hi there, history fans. So today we have another video from Salmonella Academy, and it's called The Banana Republics. It was recommended by a patron member after I did the oversimplified video of the football wars in Central America. So if you want to join Patreon, the link is going to be in the description below. As always, I will give some of my additional information, thoughts, and so on. If you want to correct me, add something interesting and so on, I would like you to share it in the comment section. I will appreciate it and our community is going to appreciate it. Yeah, without further ado, let's jump into the video.
Hey kids, do you like
as always, the link to the original video is going to be in the description below. Go give them a view and a like. And if you don't know Salmonella, but probably as you clicked on this video, you know already about him. He's a great guy. He makes great videos. So go watch some other videos of his and subscribe to his channel if you like his content. But for me, I think he does very great videos and content and everything. But yeah.
fashionable, high-quality apparel at an affordable price? Well, too bad, because that's not what we're talking about today. I'm going to learn you all a thing or two about the real banana republics. Our story begins during the turn of the 20th century in Central and South America. Agriculture's kind of a big deal right now. You've got a ton of little plantations all over the place growing bananas, sugar, pineapples, that kind of thing. And they're doing alright for themselves, no big deal. But then refrigeration happened, and it changed everything. Because now produce could be kept fresh for way longer in transit, meaning the fruit companies could suddenly open up their business to the international market, their biggest new trade partner being the United States. This massive opportunity gave rise to three main...
Yeah, and probably if you're from Central America, Latin America, or the US, you probably know more about this stuff than me as a European. So I appreciate every comment. But yeah, the turn... So with the US presidents, you know, like you had Theodore Roosevelt, and then we had Taft, and then Woodrow Wilson, First World War. So as far as I know, during Theodore Roosevelt, he was like more of an let's intervene guy and let's open up the US to the international market, you know, like interventionalist, let's do things to other countries and so on. And one of his like personal projects was the Panama Canal. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that it happened around that time. So 19 and it's probably like what it's going to be until 1915 or something like that. But yeah,
companies, known as the United Fruit Company, Cuyamel Fruit Company, and the Vaccaro Bros. By growing, shipping, and selling fruit, these three firms made just obscene amounts of money, a lot of which went towards buying out smaller family-owned farms and plantations. This allowed them to make even obscener amounts of money, until eventually the only competition that remained was each other. And then shit got real. The year is 1910. One of the companies I mentioned, Cuyamel, was doing...
So it's Taft now. I think Theodore Roosevelt was until 1909. And then Taft jumped in.
Most of its business in the country of Honduras, when the president of Honduras, Miguel Davila, decided to give a land grant to the Vaccaro Bros in exchange for helping to build some roadways. In doing so, they basically stole a bunch of Cuyamel's potential plantations and gave them to a competitor. So Samuel Zemurray, owner of Cuyamel, said to himself, "Dang, I hate those guys. If only there was some way for a guy like me to significantly influence the world around him for his own personal gain." Wait a minute. So he used a portion of his McDuck-esque fortune to hire a mercenary army, which he gave to one of his friends, former Honduran President Manuel Bonilla. And together, they overthrew the entire fucking government of Honduras. Yeah. Should've called it Cuyamel. Anyway, Bonilla...
So a private business practically like just made a coup on a sovereign nation. Great. One question, is that the Romanian guy that somebody mentioned in the comments section? Because somebody mentioned that there was a big, you know, like capitalist business owner who intervened in Central America, and that he was actually from Romania or Romanian origins or something like that. So is that the guy? Probably.
Mia took power and gave very generous concessions to Koiamel and United as thanks. But then America saw this, and they were like, hey, that's not very freedom of you, young man. To which Zemmouri replied, it's okay, we're gonna help this country succeed. After all, politics and business are essentially the same thing. Well, I suppose it's not our place to be policing the governments of other nations, yet. Still though, maybe— Oh, also? Nanners. Alright, I'm sold, do what you want. So with their interests secured, the businesses continued to thrive and expand. But since they got cut so many breaks by the government, very little of their commerce actually ended up benefiting Honduras as a whole. In fact, the national debt of Honduras got so bad that the government ended up not being able to perform a lot of its functions. So in response, the three fruit companies stepped in and said, no worries, we got this, and decided to basically build the nation's infrastructure for them, including roads, railways, shipping lines, telegraphs, telephone lines, radio towers. They even switched the whole country off to the US dollar. Keep in mind, this wasn't out of the goodness of their hearts. It was mostly just to make their own businesses function more efficiently. But it was helpful either way. Anyway, now, not only did they have total power over their plantations, but also a monopoly over nearly every major industry in the country. Many other Central American nations soon followed this pattern, creating a corrupt sort of symbiosis whereby the fruit companies get huge tax breaks and land grants in exchange for a modernized infrastructure and payoffs to the rich minority. And so, the banana republics were born. Sounds like a pretty sweet gig, right? And it was. For the upper 5% of the populations who happen to hold some direct share in the plantations or shipping lines. For your average Jose, though, life mostly consisted of working on land that wasn't even theirs in exchange for dirt-poor wages. So that's how things...
And I don't know how the situation is now, but yeah, in some countries you can still see the exploitation not only of you know, like regular workers, but I mean exploitation. The wages are practically nothing, and also child labor. So yeah, it's kind of probably from that era. Still, is it still going on, or do the private companies, the U.S. private companies, still have that much of a monopoly on those countries? Or was it just back then, so...
Things were for like a decade and a half. At some point, Koiamel was bought out by United, but then Zemmouri became the owner of the whole thing, somehow, and the Vaccaro company was renamed as Standard Fruit. Then one day, in 1944, the country of Guatemala had a democratic revolution, and the newly elected leader, Juan José Arevalo, wasn't happy with how the companies treated his people. So he implemented several reforms, like a minimum wage law and universal suffrage. And while the populace got a lot of benefit out of this, United Fruit most certainly did not, because more rights for their workers means less profits for the business as a whole. Then Guatemala got a new president, Jacobo Arbenz, and he continued these reforms. And United continued to get the metaphorical shaft until finally, in 1953, they decided to go to the USA for help. Oh, Eisenhower. Yo, what's up? This Jacobo guy, he's making us pay minimum wages. Well, that doesn't sound very good for business. That's not all, though. He's also taking our unused land and giving it back to the people. Does that sound familiar? Oh, dear. You don't think. By the way it's looking, Dwight, I'd say he's a dirty... Oh, God. Collectivizing? No. Commie. Commie! Commie! Yeah, go get him, Dwight.
Oh, God.
Holy shit, you actually did it. World Star! And from that point onward...
1953, Stalin dies, but it's still, you know, like the era of the Cold War. And the US had always, you know, like the fears that communism will spread throughout the world. So every little thing that kind of indicated to communism, or to, let's call it in today's terms, like leftism, or whatever, you know, like more intervention from the state in the free market. They identified it as, you know, like communism, and you know, like communism in our backyard, in our neighboring states, and so on. We need to stop it. So it's kind of logical that the private companies kind of succeeded in convincing the U.S. government to intervene in those countries. But yeah, it's still kind of confusing for me as a European, you know, like some how to explain it to not sound too political, but you know, like some, let's call it more of a social democratic things that were also pushed in some of those countries. So, you know, like not communist or socialist ideas, but social democratic ideas were also viewed as communism. So yeah, it's kind of logical that the US government kind of intervened in those countries.
Guatemala was ruled by a series
period
of US-backed dictatorships all the way up until 1996. This kind of situation happened in several other places and times as well, almost always driven by some combination of red fear and yellow love. I won't give any more details for the sake of time, but that doesn't mean they weren't big deals. So you might be wondering, where did these companies go? Surely the Clan of Banana Shenanigans can't still be around today. Well, that's where you're wrong. They're still in operation, just under different names. Standard Fruit changed their name in 1991 to become none other than Dole Food Company. You know, when I was a kid, I used to play a lot of Super Monkey Ball, and I used to wonder, what kind of cruel tyrant would just stick an ape in a ball for their own amusement? Well, now I know. Those bastards.
Really?
As for United, one day in 1976, their CEO decided he couldn't take the heat anymore, so he jumped out the fucking window. That's a real thing, look it up. Then some other guy bought the company and renamed it to, drumroll please, Chiquita Banana. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The face you once knew as an innocent, fun-loving dancer/fruit merchant is actually a ruthless tyrant who overthrows democracies and undermines basic human rights for her own profit. Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
Really? What? I didn't know that. What? Okay, I'm still a little bit shocked. But yeah, as he explained it, it was a kind of symbiotic way, you know, like between the US government and the private companies. So anytime a election was held and, you know, like let's call him a lefty person was elected, either socialist or social democrat or democratic socialist, whatever type of left policies or left person you think about, when we talk about, you know, like minimum wage and so on, the companies, the private companies would lose profit, which would also hit kind of the US economy because those were US companies, less revenue through the taxes and so on. And because of the Red Scare that was happening throughout the Cold War in the US and the fear of the domino effect, especially after the Cuban Revolution, they feared that Central American states, those small states, are going to follow the Cuban Revolution. So they intervened in every possible way to stop that domino effect or to stop revolutions or leftist people, politician, whatever. So sometimes, actually very often, they would also install their own, like, either puppet governments or you know, like ruthless dictators and so on. And it was kind of, let's just say it, really bad for the local people, but good for the private companies that operated in those countries. But yeah, okay. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to be part of our community, just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notified when new videos come out. If you liked it, like the video. If you dislike it, dislike the video. And until next time, see ya.